Welcome back to Red Glasses Talks. The title today is Priority Living. And we're going to talk about this subject for a number of weeks, priority living, as we move into 2026. Hard to believe. So have you ever heard the term a driven person? Has anyone ever called you a driven person? Let me give you some characteristics of a driven person. And we could delve into each one of these, but let me just list a few. A driven person is most often gratified only by accomplishment. A driven person is preoccupied with the symbols of accomplishment. A driven person is usually caught in the uncontrolled pursuit of expansion. Driven people tend to have a limited regard for integrity. Driven people often possess limited or undeveloped people skills. Driven people tend to be highly competitive. A driven person often possesses a volcanic force of anger. A driven person, well, they are usually abnormally busy. So are any of those characteristics characteristic of you? Well, let's think about it, because when it comes to living I would call it a balanced life has to be a priority-driven life. And that's what we're going to talk about as we think about this. So that driven person is just moving, and they're relentless, and they're passionate, and some of that's good. But you know, it's also interesting to look at the culture around us every day, especially we've just come out of the holiday season, Christmas season, and people are rushing around, etc. There's nowhere, by the way, have you ever seen in the New Testament, have you ever seen a verse where it says, and Jesus jogged over to Jericho, or Jesus rushed into whatever community, or Jesus hurrying along the trail? You never saw any of these terms applied to Jesus. He was methodically going through his daily routine because he knew the purpose he had on this planet. And he was not distracted or pulled off the basic objective and focus of his life. He faced, though, even in the midst of all that, he faced immense pressure. We all face pressure. No one ever faced pressure like Jesus. Jesus knew that ultimately he was headed to die on a cross. Incredible pressure. So, a balanced life is a priority-driven life, and we're going to talk about that. So as you think about 2026, there are what I call four biggies, four things you need to work through to come out with a plan that's going to help you have a strategy to live out 2026. So let's kind of jump in here for a second, and hopefully this will make sense to you. This is just the beginning of the process we're going to go through the next few weeks. And some of you are watching this, you say, oh, I just want one of those 30-second deals that I can look at on social media and then move to the next one and the next one. Hey, you know what? That's really not going to promote growth and maturing. You can't do it just by a quick 30-second little thing on social media, a little quick talk. So let's dig in here for a second. The first biggie is your objectives. Your objectives. In other words, what do you want? What do you want? What's an objective? Well, let's define it. The thing aimed at or sought. In other words, it's your goal. It's that bullseye on the wall. That's what you're aiming at in your life. And so in Matthew chapter number 6, verse 33, Jesus said the following, but seek first his kingdom and his right living or righteousness, and all these things will be given unto you. And then you go over to Proverbs chapter number 16, And this is, again, these are all right on the button. Proverbs 16:3 says the following. It says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. So as you come up with objectives, as you come up with things you're seeking, make sure that you will commit them to the Lord, and He will walk through these processes with you to help you accomplish them, especially if they're of Him. And then we'll look at Proverbs 4:13. Proverbs 14 says, hold on to instruction, do not let it go, guard it well, for it is your life. So in other words, he's saying, take into account what the book says, the Bible says, about the main things in life, and we're getting ready to go through those starting next time. So objectives always determine the outcomes of life. So let me just give you a couple examples. Maintaining personal and spiritual integrity. That's going to have to somehow be dealt with in setting your objectives. Developing marital intimacy. Fulfilling parental responsibility. Establishing professional competency. These are just a few, and we'll look at those in the next few weeks. So here's the question. 2026, what are your goals? 2026, what are the dreams or things that you want to be targets that you're going to go after? Let me tell you something. It's a true deal. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So next time we'll focus on priorities. What are the priorities that we need to have in order to be able to reach the objectives? So get ready between now and then. Write down some objectives, some goals you have for 2026. Check you out next time.